Ever watched someone make their own clothes and thought, I wish I could do that? That used to be me too. But here's the truth. You can start sewing even if you have never touched a sewing machine before. And in 2025, it's easier than ever. Maybe you want to start sewing your own clothes, or you want to start upcycling the clothes that are already in your closet, but you're so overwhelmed of where do I start? What do I need to get to be able to start this task? There are a few investments you have to make before you start sewing, and the first one is your sewing machine. This is the first step to making your own clothes from scratch, like Nara Smith does with her meals, you know? So let's talk sewing machines. There is a wide variety of sewing machines across the market, and you can start with a domestic sewing machine. It does not have to be the most expensive sewing machine or the latest sewing machine with the most buttons and technology, because most of the time you don't even use the rest of everything that's on there. Like stitches, for example, you mainly need your straight stitch and or your zigzag stitch. I would recommend you first look up on Facebook Market to get a second-hand machine if you do not want to spend a lot of money getting a sewing machine. But you can also get brand new domestic sewing machines that are also quite affordable, from like 2,000 rand up to like 2,500 rand, and they'll be brand new. So you can look at your brother's sewing machines, your single sewing machines. What's the other one? There's a lot. I personally started with an Empisal, I think. My mother had owned for over 10 years. So it was just sitting there, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna finally start sewing. I used to do a lot of hand stitching, and this was mainly for my dolls. My dolls were the it girls of my childhood, okay? They had every outfit from every popular cartoon you can ever think of. That's how I initially started sewing. And then finally up in 2019, that's when I started college, and I was like, hey, let me actually try and make my own clothes. And that's when I started learning the sewing machine. Step 2 is your sewing tools. Now, these do not have to be a lot. I know you see them girlies with cutting mats, sewing French rulers, all these cutesy little tools, you know. I know they're really cute and you really want them, but as you're beginning, it's important to also not break your bank in this economy. We cannot afford to do that. So I'm just gonna give you the most basic tools that you're going to need to start sewing. Firstly, I'm gonna go with your scissors. Your scissors is one of the most important tools to your sewing. You need to get a really good quality, sharp scissors. I like these big scissors because they cut really crisp and really nicely compared to smaller cutting scissors. Second on the line, I have your tape measure. This is important for taking your own measurements to see how much fabric you need to cut. And then there is your sewing pins. I really like sewing pins, and I got these big ones, but they're kind of bad for my sewing needles sometimes. I tend to break my needles when they land on the pin, so sometimes I have to remove them before I reach the part to sew. But you can also get really tiny ones like these, and there are even smaller ones than these, and those hardly breaks your needles, but I always tend to lose those. That's why I also created this little pin puff. I have a tutorial on my channel on how to make this as well. This could be your first project. And you can also use clips. Some people prefer clips, and when you're also working with harder fabric or sensitive fabric, it's much better if you use clips than pins. And then we have your seam ripper. Very important for when you make those little tiny mistakes, or you just need to remove a few stitches from the garment, you oversewn the piece. This is very handy and very simple and easy to use. Very important. It's small but mighty. And then you need your bobbins. Definitely I advise you to get extra bobbins, because you'll be probably making a lot of different colored things with different colored fabrics, and for each color you're gonna have a different colored thread, and it's a pain to have to remove your thread from your bobbin to put another thread on there and always removing, and that's also wasteful. So I suggest you get a lot of bobbins. I actually need more. And then we have your roll of thread. Apparently this is called a stool, and I had never heard of that. Wow. I like these big ones because they last me quite a while. and this is a polyester cotton mixed thread, which is more affordable than, are they called Gali or something? I don't know. But this is more affordable, and if you're using a domestic machine, a little quick hack that I learned is, instead of putting it on top of your machine, because those are made for smaller thread smaller thread stools, you can get a mug, put your thread in a mug and just thread your machine as usual, and that works like a charm. You're gonna need hand stitching needles for the little tiny bits of like finishing touches or transferring your fabric from your body or your mannequin to your sewing machine. Sewing needles are really handy for a lot of things. Now let's talk fabric. My favorite places to find my fabrics are thrift stores. I love upcycling. That's like my thing. So I tend to go to thrift stores a lot. I thrift curtains, tablecloth, but with tablecloth you have to be really careful because some of them might have a lot of stains. Duvet covers, random fabric pieces, a thrift store has a lot. And if you're also looking to upcycle clothes, you can thrift the clothes as well and then upcycle them. You can also get your fabric at your local fabric stores. I love the fabric store. That's like one of my favorite places to be in the world. It makes me so happy to see a whole bunch of fabrics. Try and find non-stretch fabrics. Those are easier for almost everybody to start with because they don't move around a lot. But I personally started with stretch fabric, so I always prefer stretch fabric over non-stretch. So I think this depends on your creativity and how you can make it work. Also, at your fabric stores, make sure you always check the specials section where they put like the last bit of the fabric rolls. Those are almost always half priced, such a steal, and they always have good fabrics. Now we're gonna get into our patterns. The easiest ways to get patterns for what you want to make is looking at the clothes that you already own in your closet. Second is taking your measurements and working it out. Try and figure out what you're doing. I do this a lot. I like to freestyle a lot. Take your measurements and freestyle whatever you just sketched and designed, because I find it very hard to follow instructions when it comes to even patterns. Sometimes if I buy a pattern, I'll just cut out the pieces, but I won't read the instructions. I'll just be like, okay, I'm a freestyle this. If you're really creative, this can be a really easy way to get a pattern out of nowhere. I'm not saying that what you should do, follow the instructions, please, thank you. And then there is thrift stores where you can find vintage patterns and self-made sewing patterns as well. I found a few of those. Online patterns that you can just download and print out. One of the most popular ones is Mood Fabrics, and they do have really nice patterns. I actually checked out the website, but I just haven't gotten time to print it out. I think I should do that soon and try making one of their patterns. There's also YouTube videos that teaches you how to draft patterns. So that's one of the things that makes it really easy for you to start sewing in 2025, because there's a tutorial for everything. Literally anything you can think of on this planet, you can find it on YouTube. Last but not least, I'm gonna talk about sewing tutorials. As a beginner, it's easier for you to see something visually being made, for you to process that and be like, okay, that's what I gotta do. Sometimes there's things that like I'm not very good at. For example, installing flapper zips and collars. I'm actually getting better at making collars now, like shirt collars, button up shirt collars. I would need to go look at a tutorial and be like, oh, that's how it's done, and then go back to the pattern, because the pattern, it has written instructions but it does not have a visual of what I'm doing. And if you'd like to try like fun beginner to sewing tutorials that you can actually wear, you can also check out my channel. I have a lot of those. You're welcome. I think that's basically everything you need to start sewing in the year 2025. I know we are like already past the middle of the year, but it's never too late for you to start a new hobby. So I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and please do let me know if there's anything else that you'd like to know about how to start sewing in this year down in the comments. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe. It's been a while since I've done an intro. Oh my god. yeah, see you guys in my next video.